Okay, so that's all now totally dry. What we've done, we've just masked up the bottom here. And this is obviously just for the grey strip that runs along here. Just use a little bit of 6mm, just follow the panel line right the way through and just carry it through, and a little bit of a flick at the end, and that takes care of that. So that's that one done. Quite simple. Now I'm not going to mask up all of this area because I'm going to shoot from the top coming straight down. So what it'll do, it'll give us a natural edge all the way around here without having the problem of, obviously if you do put some tape here, it hits it, you get a little bit of wind sort of, you know, it revolves on itself and you end up with a messy edge. So I like a nice clean edge, so I just let it naturally do it as it would. Obviously we've got yellow strips going to go on the front of these outer edges, so really it's just this front one we have to worry about. Now, you probably heard me mention I was going to put a bit of blue tack just on the front here and stick these all to it, but just trying it, really, well, it doesn't stick. So if that's gone out the window, we're going to do it freehand, because this join here, there isn't an actual line. The only one is between, is actually on the cowl and the sides, which what we can do, we can mask it up, like put it together like this with a bit of tape, spray it, and then away we go. Now the thing with all camo painting, I do believe a lot of people overcomplicate the problem. Now you'll see a lot of people cutting out masks and making patterns and drawing on the wings and all the rest of it. Which, you know, if that's the way you do it and that's the way you're happy with it, then no problem at all. Personally, I think by the time you've masked up and done all those things, you could have probably sprayed it already. Now, freehand spraying is, a lot of people, just the word of it sends shivers down the spine and they won't want to do it. I find that when I'm teaching people and showing people how to do it, as soon as they've had a quick go at it, they're like, oh yeah, that works quite well, and away you go. Now, obviously on a 132 scale or 124, it's a lot easier than it would be if you're going to be doing it on a 148 or 172. You know, then masks do come in and you can do, you know, little things with those, and away you go. So you could mask it literally by putting a paper mask down or some Friskus and sticking it to it and then spraying it. The other way, of course, which you've probably seen me do on other things, is where we get some, this is white tack, so it's oil free, and what you do, you basically get yourself a lump, put it like this, give it a roll in your hands. Two things this does: once it warms it up, makes it a lot more sticky and it makes it more pliable, and also you can thin it out, and then you can come along and you literally just stick it down and then you make up your pattern, which is quite nice because you see how you're going to spray and then you can go around and do it, which is something that will be covered if you are a member of the site or you have buying the discs of actually doing it. But certainly with freehand, it's a lot more fluid and a lot more sort of, you can just spray through and away you go. Now, the other ways of doing this as well is obviously putting your colours on. What I tend to do is work with the lightest colour first and end in the darkest. So certainly if you're doing something like this, we've worked the lightest grey for, obviously for the underside here, is done and it looks very good with the pre-shading. And then what we'll do, we'll work with the next grey, the darker grey, and the green will be the last one on. That way you just end up with sharper little lines than you would be if you're going the other way, because obviously the darker colour underneath acts a little bit like pre-shading. So that's the thing with that. That said, what we'll do, we'll probably come back a few times switching between the colours to sharpen up little lines, because the first time we go down with this, what will happen is it might be not quite right, not quite sharp enough, and all we'll do, we'll be thinning down the paint, lowering the air pressure and sharpening up the actual camouflage pattern. So, for this particular one, what we'll be doing now is moving on to the next colour, which is XF82. This is the actual ocean grey. It's the new Tamiya colour, which works really well on this one. So what we'll do, we'll get the airbrush loaded up and then we'll carry on. Okay, so what we've got here, we've got the aforementioned colour, where we're XF82 in here. We're going to be shooting this quite high air pressure for the moment because it's just a single one going in. So it's going to be about sort of 25, 27 PSI. It's a 50-50 mix, very standard, nothing new. So what I'm going to do, grab the old instructions as we've got here. Okay, now it's going to be slightly out of shot. I orientate the model to the same direction as it is on the plans, and then that way I can just keep an eye where we're going. Now this first colour is literally going to be not too much of a problem. We're just going to put it down in the rough pattern of how it's actually going to be on there. When we do the green, we'll tighten up. So all we've got to do is make sure that this is going to go up to the green, so we're not going to be left with some grey primer and some pre-shading in between the two. So this is quite a rough job to start with, so we'll just check our flow. Okay, and what we're going to do, we're just going to work out roughly where we all are. Okay, and we're just going to pattern in some colour very roughly, like so. Okay, just like this on the wing, and then all we're going to do is colour it in. Now, like the pre-shading on the underside, We don't want to totally flood it or lose it, so we're just going to generally paint it in and let it come back through afterwards. So there we go, that one's in, and then we can come up and we can do these front areas. If we're just keeping sure where we all are. So as I say, we're going slightly past where we want to, but that is deliberate. Just making sure we're coming down, covering all the bits and pieces. But a good example here, we need to cover this bit of pre-shading just down the back here along this gun panel, because otherwise what's going to happen is it's going to show through too strong and it's actually where some grey is. So we're just going to go in there and cover that one up. Okay, then we're just going to start coming up from the bottom, working our way up. Like so. I'm just going to colour this bit in, slightly wrapping over the front as we go round, and then we're just going to colour in like this. And as I say, this doesn't have to be too nice or smart or anything else like that, because literally this is free shading, just being covered over with the grey. Then we're going to tighten it up and turn it all into that nice pattern afterwards. So I'm going to use exactly the same technique and just do the rest of the wing. Okay, and there we go. That's the grey work on. Now what we're doing, we're making sure we've got joins all done at the top, everything's nice, there's no little sink marks and things going on. Making sure that the camo's wrapped around to the front edge, and then we're happy how that goes. And just generally making sure the pre-shading isn't perhaps sticking through a little bit too much and things like that. Once we're happy, what we're going to do, we're going to tip a lot of this back just into the colour cut. And we're just going to leave a little bit still out. Give this a quick wipe here. Okay, then all we're going to do is add a lot more thinners to this. So we're going to put another 50% thinners in there, so now we're down to a third if you like. Okay, take some flat white. And all we're going to do is just grab a ladle full. Not too much of it, just give us a bit of a mix. Just grab just about this much on a thing, it's probably like a brush full. Okay, I'm just going to pop it into that thinner mix, just like so. And what we'll do is move that out of the way. We're just going to blow through and see our other colour come out. So if you do it in one area, you'll see when it comes out, it'll go a lot lighter. As you can probably see it, it's coming through now, nice and light. And all we're going to do now, because we're doing this really for weathering, we're just going to lighten up the centre of the panels. So this is just a little bit thick still, so I'm just going to add a little bit more thinners, because what we want this to do is sort of just bleach the top bit and not actually go in there and, if we just use a brush to give this a good mix, we don't want it to go in there and sort of act and be too thick and start sticking to paintwork and stuff. So we just blow this through again, and you should find it will come through very, very nice and easy. Okay, so all we're going to do, same thing, coming across like this, pick out a panel, for instance a little panel here, and we're just going to lightly blow in the middle part. Now this is one of those things, it doesn't have to be particularly nice, it doesn't have to be very good. The more random you are, the better. And we're just picking out little panels, just to bleach. Tops of these gun areas, because we don't want a massive difference in colour. We're just looking to lighten it and give it a bit of a change. Obviously here the Randall's going to cover a lot of it, but it will just change the odd little bit. And obviously big areas on big flat things can have quite a bit. because it'll be bleached. And then we're just going to come down here on the sides, areas, and just pick out just little bits. And what this will do, just break up the grey and make it a little bit more not so blocky. And obviously if you've got some pre-shading that's really standing out and coming through very, very strong, you can actually just go straight over it. So if we can just carefully get my hand, whoops, under here, and just pick out, as I say, little areas. Okay, so we've already loaded up the XF81, which is the RAF Green 2, as Tamiya call it in the acrylic. So what we're going to do now is go around and just fill in all these areas. Now at this stage we don't need this to be absolutely perfect and sharp lines and everything else, because what we're going to do is come back in a minute, thin down the paint, lower the air pressure, and really cut in the lines as we're going to need them. So what we're going to do, we're still going to use our guide, which we've got just down here out of shot. Still going to rotate it just the way as we did the other one, but this one's just going to be a little bit more careful where we go. We don't want any mass overspray and anything else like that. So there again, we've got 50-50 mix just in here, and we're shooting about sort of 25-27 psi still. So what we're going to do, we're just going to take a good look at our instructions and then copy them over to here. So what we'll do, we'll just do this one first. So we're just looking to see where things go. And then we're just keeping nice distance, as I say, just roughly following the shape. And then backfill the colour. As we go round. And as you see, that isn't particularly as good as, you know, the instructions will call out. Get the glare off it, as you see. But what we do, when we go around to sharpen up, we can actually then put in the little indentations and things like that as we go. So we're just going to go the same with the other one. So just around like this, and then obviously we're just going to follow this green, which is hidden certainly quite a bit by the roundel, up like that. This one is just going to come down here. Just for the moment, we're just going to work it round quite a basic pattern, just like so, and then we just colour this in. Same thing again, hang it right over the edge, and then we're just going to go round and colour this one in. So we just rotate this round so we can get a bit of a better line on the front. Just like so. And there we go. So that's that wing done just like this. And then for the moment, as I say, it's pretty raw. So I'm going to go around and spray it everywhere just the same, and then we're going to come back, thin this down, and really start on the camo pattern. Okay, so there we go. That's the actual all the camo work done on there. And as I say, it doesn't look too bad at the moment. But what we want to do is just sharpen it up. And obviously this is an area that's actually wrong to the instructions. And we need just to add a little bit more detail to this lines. And also some of them are a little bit blurry. So by using both colours, thin down, we can sort them out. So what we're going to do is tip some of this away. If you've got quite a bit left over like this, we're going to tip most of it away. And then what we're going to do is just re-thin it again by about 50%. Okay, good old mix to make sure you've got your mixtures all mixed up. Now obviously you've got quite a bit left in the bottom of the chamber, so just for the moment, which is just down here in the working part, so we're just going to blow that out for the moment. And as you see, the thinner stuff comes in. And what we want to do is lower the air pressure down to about 15 psi. Now the reason for doing this, because we thinned the paint, it doesn't need as much air pressure to actually get it out of the airbrush, so in that way it will make for a smaller, more confined line, because the air that's hitting it won't cause as much overspray. Now certainly we're going to have to go back and just tidy up a few little areas, but what this enables us to do is to make for a far nicer, tighter type of camo pan. Now what we're going to do, we're going to pick out a particular area, like this one down here needs to be slightly brought out wider on this side. So if I just bring the camera a little bit better into play, just down in here, as you can see it a little bit better. So what we want to do is just this front edge just in a little bit. So what we do, now don't forget it's going to be a lot wetter, but it'll be a far smoother finish. So we can just go around and we can just tighten up little areas. So obviously the grey is going to have to come in a moment when we redo this around a lot more, but certainly down the bottom here we've got a bump that comes a lot further up, just like so. Sorry, I'm getting my head in the camera at the same time. But you see what we're going to do, we're just going to work our way round and tighten up all the little camo lines and just make them a lot nicer. On the end. In any areas where it's a little bit thin, you can probably see here what we've done. We've just put the panels with the engine in just to make sure we've got the right line as that front cowlings meet the main fuselage there with the fuel tank as well. So what I've done is just spray in that tiny little area just to make sure that's all a nice fit, which it is. So we can whip that off now. So what I've done, same thing again, we've added a little bit of white to this mix. So we just pop the compressor again to get a nice straight air. So what we're going to do, we're just going to, same as we did before, we're happy. Any little areas where we want to take care of and make them, you know, just a little bit nicer. Perhaps if we've got some little areas which need bleaching out, same thing, top of panels, middle of centres of panels, just to bleach them up just a little bit. So we're just going to go round, and anywhere we're just going to put some little swirly patterns in. If it's not an area, if it's just something that's full of rivets, so all we're doing is basically just fading off the centres of the panels. So we're just trying to give it a bit of a change of colour and just give it a more sort of worn look to it all. So that's the type of effect we're trying to do here. So we're just going to go around these areas, just like so. Fuel tanks. And we're just not trying to model it as such, but we're just trying to vary it, just the same as we did before. Just to give it a more worn, weathered, certainly perhaps, you know, almost describing it as a hard life. But there again, if you didn't want this, you wouldn't be doing this now. If you want a clean look to it all, then obviously forget this stage. Top bits here. Okay, so we just finished off all the areas. So what we've done, we've just literally gone along and cut in. I see it. We've gone in and cut in just to tidy up all those camo pattern up, just to make it a little bit more tighter. Any little bits of overspray we've taken care of, certainly in certain areas. But it's one of those things, you can go overboard with it. Because we're trying to give it a weathered look, we want it to be sort of blended in, looking dirty, because then by the time it has a wash on it and things like that, it should really start to come to life and start looking dirty and mottled and everything else like that. So what we're going to do, we're going to leave it like that now, let it dry off for half an hour, then we can get it together, have a look, see if we're happy with it, and if we are, we can move on. So there we go, that's the actual work done. We've just unmasked here. What we can do is we can spray up the glass work in a moment, so that's done. We won't attach it until the end because they're all very nice fits and we'll put them on as an afterthought. But certainly for the minute we can let this totally dry off all now, and then we can actually get a coat of Future down onto this so it's ready for decaling, and in the meantime we can do all the other bits like the undercarriage, sorting those out, fixing the engine properly, any little bit of things we want to take care of at this point. Okay, in 3. Okay, so we're at the spray bay now. We've put the engine in and attached, and it's just pushed in, so it's not actually a locked fit, if you know what I mean. So we can take it on and off as is required. Now we've got a couple of little areas just to touch up. Down here, sprayed the grey on last, and it's just a little bit messy, whereas on this wing, on the close-up, you can see it's quite nice and sharp, quite happy with that. This one on this side is just a little bit foggy. So what I'll do is I can do it here on the bench, just tidy that up generally. So that's okay. As you can see, we've done the undercarriage, which is very straightforward. That just got an inner part to the actual hub itself, around for that the door as it closes, and then obviously the main leg goes in there. We're going to do a little bit of silver work in there and obviously add the brake lines, but we're quite happy with how that all is. We've put it on really to stop it sitting on the desk and you're getting scraped off underneath. Now, the other bits we've been doing is obviously masking up. Now, there is a little seam line to do just down on the actual main part of the canopy. You could get away with leaving it. It's a very, very fine one. But if you want to be a bit of a perfectionist, normally I do them before. This time I'm going to do it afterwards so I don't lose the detail on both sides. But I'll show you that one in a moment. But we've been around and done those. Now, the thing is, I did actually think that these were a pre-cut die set for the actual the ones that you can get from Edard. Normally you just peel them off, stick them on, and away you go. Unfortunately these ones here aren't, so what you've got to do is come along with a knife and literally just cut them out as you go round. It's not so much of a problem, it's just a bit time consuming, and it would have been nice if they'd been pre-done, but there we go, we can't worry about that. The other thing is that we've done the hubs for the tyres. As you can see here on the close-up, this one's already in. Now the tyres themselves obviously rubber. So what I actually do is just come along, grab yourself a couple of, if we can find them here, here we go, get yourself a sanding sponge and a stick, quite a coarse one, like we got here. Then all we do is actually just sand the centre seam out of this completely, because obviously with the rubber it has them. Now as it heats up and gets warm, what happens is it just basically peels away, so you just have to be careful as you go around and don't let it overheat as you take it off. But if you just go around it and knock out the main part of the centre one as you go, then if I just speed up, then all I do is come along with a sponge and then just sand it like so. Just like that. Then I sand the sides as well, just to take them off. Now obviously it looks all like this, then all we do is just rub it with your fingers. And actually it comes back to being a nice rubbery colour. And now obviously if you wet it, it will speed things up. All you do is just use your finger to smooth it all down and make it all like a tyre again. And once you've worked it all round, you should come up with something like this. So obviously there's no centre seam in it, and it has that overall rubber look to it. And then obviously that'll stick straight onto the wheel once it's all painted up and done. Alright then, so we tidied up some of this paintwork, as you can probably see on the close-up. What we've done is basically just popped round with some of that thin paint and gone round just to make it a little bit more neater, everything else like that. Now obviously we've got the cowlings on, as you can see, all things like that. So what we want to do now is protect this paintwork from obviously some damage, scratching, things like that. So the easiest way to do that is to give it a coat of gloss. Now for this one, obviously we're going to be using Johnson's Clear, but anybody's really will do. What we're trying to do, you can give this a satin or a gloss finish. Now I'm going to use a gloss because then obviously coming on for doing decaling and things like that, it will just make it a lot easier. So if you're spraying Future, obviously make sure your airbrush is blowing nice and clean. So always put a little bit of thinners just in it first, just out of view here. I'll just blow through about 1 mil just to make sure we're all clean and happy. I'm just blowing that right through. It's coming out to the end. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm just going to take our Johnson's clear. This is quite an old bottle. Had it for a while now. So what I'm going to do is gently just tip a little bit in here, not too much. He says, putting far too much in than he really wanted. Okay, so we just gently just pour a little bit back in. So what we've got there is about 2.5 mil. It's just half a colour cut, but if you drip it over your model, it's a bit of more of a problem. Okay, so we're quite high air pressure, about 30 psi, and all we're going to do at the moment is just flick the extractor on, because it does tend to be a bit smelly. And we'll put it on in a minute. What we're going to do is just very lightly, just putting on a light coat, nothing heavy. And what this will do, it will just protect the paintwork. And then if we did get any fingerprints on it and things like that, we could very, very easily get them off. This will act as a barrier for any type of weathering we're going to be using and coming along to. The only thing you will notice, this will darken up your paintwork quite considerably. I'm just going to go along with this, as I say, putting down one coat, and then we're going to come back and we're going to put down another afterwards. So we're just like that, quite happy with that. We'll move this out of the way. I've just got to do around the cockpit sides, just that side, just down there. Okay, let that sit for about 10 minutes, come back, we'll give it another coat, and then we're going to leave it for about an hour to dry off.